Welcome to the Pocket. My name is Scooter, here to give you my Week 3 reaction to the Giants' win in Cleveland over the Browns, 15-21. Now, before we get started, I just want to acknowledge that for the third year in a row, the first game that I picked the Giants to lose is actually their first win. So, with that being said, next year, if you want to win some money, make sure you pay attention to the first game I picked the Giants to lose because that's the one you should pick them to win. Now, getting into it, this was a great team win on both sides of the ball. I get the special teams had a little bit of a mishap to start off the game, but those things happen. And you know what? We actually reacted pretty well to it. Judging how we played for the rest of the game, we didn't really let that get into our heads. And that was something I really like to see. Now, like I said, this was a great team win, but we're going to start with the offense. And as much as I'd love to talk about Daniel Jones first, it's time to talk about Malik Nabers. This guy is the real deal. Making guys miss and yards after catch, check. Making catches contested, one-on-one down the field, check. Toe tap grabs on the sideline and in the end zone, check. And finding spots in the zone on third down to move the chains, check. This guy is a number one wide receiver. He can do everything. That's what I've been saying in this offseason. Marvin Harrison Jr. is great. I'm not comparing the two of them, but Malik Nabers is definitely, so far, shown that he is capable of more as a wide receiver in his role in this offense. He is the star of this offense. He is what makes it go, and he's just 21 years old. It really is amazing how these young wide receivers are able to step into the NFL and play at this level. Truly incredible. I mean, the first touchdown catch he had, where he caught it and spun in the air and then toe tapped, spectacular. Mossing someone, Martin Emerson Jr., to get down the field, amazing catch. And then, of course, all the times he moved the chains, the second touchdown catch, he slipped open into the middle of the field. He's going to be our reason for success on offense. So, love that we have Malik Nabers going with Daniel Jones. So, next, let's talk about him. He did get very, very lucky with the way that he started this game with that fumble and then the touchdown that they immediately scored, us getting the ball back. And he is reading what looks like a spot play to Theo Johnson. He throws it as there's a nickel blitzing him. It does get picked off, and the Browns are celebrating, but there was actually a roughing the passer on the blitzing nickel cornerback. Now, Theo Johnson did run sort of a bad route on that play, but you kind of put it on both of them for not being on the same page. But other than that, he was dealing. He was like 10 for 11 at some point in the second quarter. Big reason why we were scoring points was him moving the chains with nice little flat routes to Wandale and Singletary, or whether he was stepping up in the pocket and actually evading the pass rush. He looked much better doing that. And this is the Browns defense. People should have been covered well downfield, and there should have been a great pass rush coming at him, and there was. But one of the reasons he was able to comfortably step up was because of the offensive line, which I suppose we'll get into next. But before we move off of Daniel Jones, I just wanted to say how much better he played. He did miss Malik Nabers on what looked like a slot fade that was open. He did throw a pass that was broken up on a back shoulder fade to Malik Nabers, but considering all the other plays that they made, I'm not too concerned. They're only going to get better playing together. So that is very encouraging. Now, moving on to the offensive line, they stepped up once again. 112 rushing yards and only 2 sacks allowed. I don't know how many pressures they had, but the pressures that they did allow were seemingly just defensive ends getting the depth to get to Daniel Jones, but the interior holding up and Daniel Jones having room to climb the pocket and either run up the middle or get out to his right-hand side where he seems pretty comfortable rolling out to make a throw on the run and move the chains, which he did a couple of times. So that was great to see. And this offensive line stepping up against this Browns defensive front, the coverage that was downfield, they have to block longer to let the guys get open. And Jim Schwartz at defensive coordinator, I mean, this was a real challenge. Sure, this offense on the Browns was giving the Giants the ball back. Our defense was playing really well. But this Browns defense was not succeeding against this Giants offensive line. Something I did not think I would be saying in the next 3 years, before this season started. So I am maybe more excited about the offensive line than Malik Neighbors. I think people are really underselling how well this Giants offensive line is playing so far. Now, it could be in jeopardy with Andrew Thomas seemingly banged up on a short week, but we'll talk about that later. I think Brian Dable's play calling was the best it's been all year in this game. He had a big challenge with Jim Schwartz and this defensive roster, but he stepped up to it. He didn't try to do anything too crazy. There were a couple plays that looked like they were just straight shot plays, like that post to Hyatt that Daniel Jones vertically overthrew him on. It was unfortunate. It looked like there was a little bit of room. If he threw it more towards the inside of the field, Hyatt could have gotten under it and maybe ahead of steam. I'm glad we're doing it though, because it allowed all this short stuff underneath to Singletary, Wandale, the tight end screens. It allowed all that stuff to work and us just running the ball in general. We also went back to Malik Neighbors consistently through the whole first half and parts of the third quarter too, to move the chains on third downs, to take shots. Daniel Jones threw, I believe, one fade to the left and one fade to the right before he actually completed that deep shot where Malik Neighbors, Moss, Martin Emerson Jr. on that play. He was not discouraged. He had faith in Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors to connect on these plays. And what do you know? Eventually it worked, and it was like the floodgates opened. They were like, oh my God, we can't let him beat us deep. Now we have to actually respect the deep ball from this Giants offense. And you could just see it opened up a lot of things. We were able to put some drives together more consistently. We did only have 4 third down conversions, which isn't great, but we still scored 21 points. So we were effective on offense. We didn't just get into third and short situations. We were getting first downs on second down. So I think it was great play calling by Brian Dable. Very happy about how he coached this game. Moving on to the defense. This was a pretty huge surprise to me. They must have heard me in my video from last week where I was saying, where is this pass rush? Where are they? And they come out with 8 sacks against this Browns offensive line. Wow. I did not see this coming. We seem to have been running a lot of creative blitzes that they were not prepared for us to run with nickels and safeties, Pinnock. It was kind of similar to what we did last week, except it was actually working this week. So making up those 8 sacks was not just the front 4 guys, but I'll tell you who got a sack yesterday. It was Dexter Lawrence, who had 2. Burns had 1. It was a strip sack too. That was a huge play. Aziz got a sack. Elijah Chapman got a sack. He had a very interesting game as well. Jason Pinnock, another sack. And then Kayvon and Bobby Okereke also split a sack. So everyone I was complaining about yesterday, Kayvon, Burns, Dexter, even Aziz, the backup pass rusher, he got a sack. And then Elijah Chapman. So that's every defensive lineman got a sack. Wow. What a response to what I was saying. Do I need to complain more about this pass rush? Because I will if this is what they're going to do. What a it could have just been Watson, right? He looked really, really uncomfortable in the pocket, and I'm not sure if they weren't picking up the blitzes that we were sending or what it was. But it didn't seem like we were throwing anything too crazy at them. But we were getting not just one guy open on like a schemed up blitz. It was like the interior was getting collapsed by Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon. There was always at least 2 or 3 guys who were getting pressure and completely collapsing in on Watson. And I think that's part of why he looked so bad yesterday. We had 8 sacks, Dallas had 6, and the Jaguars had 2. So our pass rush actually performed the best against this Cleveland offensive line so far. So talking about some more team stats, we'll talk about time of possession, turnovers, because that was a huge thing in my preview video. Was I said we have to win the turnover battle, and we sort of did. Both teams lost 2 fumbles. The Giants had 1 more punt. We had 7. The Browns had 6. And now, not to mention, they were not going to punt when they were losing in the fourth quarter, but whatever. It was the game. But the deciding factor was the Giants were 1 for 1 on fourth down, where we gave that jet sweep to Malik Nabers. Another thing you can do with him. He converted on a 4th and 1 compared to the Browns, who went 1 for 3. They had to go for it twice, I believe, in the fourth quarter, and they didn't get either of those fourth downs. So that's 2 turnovers right there. And, subtract the 1 from the punt, and we win the turnover battle by 1. And what happened? We won because of that, pretty much. So what do you know? I might have been onto something there. And you look at the time of possession. I didn't explicitly say we had to win time of possession. I said it just had to be better. But we did manage to win time of possession 34 minutes to 26 minutes. So we had the ball for 8 more minutes than the Browns did. That's about half a quarter that we were controlling the clock and, controlling the flow of the game. It's much that's how you win these close games where you're winning the turnover battle is you have to also put together long drives, because then you can essentially pick and choose when the game ends if you are good at controlling the clock, right? A downside to actually scoring too fast or on explosive plays is, say you're down by a field goal or a touchdown with 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left, and you score. Well, that's great, but you just gave them the ball back with a chance to actually end the game on a touchdown or a game-winning field goal. When you can do what the Giants did that season they made the playoffs, or in this game, you can find yourselves winning games you're not supposed to or against more talented teams because you are just playing the game of football better. So this is that underrated philosophy of what Brian Dable does that I think people sort of took away from him after last year and the start of this year. This is still clearly here. This is how this team wants to operate, and when it works, they win games. So those are the team stats that. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, the Giants had 9 penalties, 6 for 8 or 68 yards, and the Browns had 5 penalties for 48 yards. So we did only have 20 more penalty yards, and it really should be 15 because we did intentionally back ourselves up to get more on a punt. So it really should be 8 penalties for 63 yards, and we had 15 more yards in penalties. But you can live with that if you're winning the turnover battle and time of possession. You can survive penalties, but you would like to see it all being there. So what does this mean for the Giants? This, as I explained before, is a formula we can use to win almost any game, because as long as this defensive pass rush is applying pressure, the young secondary can continue to settle into their own, along with the rest of the defense as a whole, setting into the scheme, being an above average unit. Like the way we played last week and the way we played the first 2 weeks is not the same. The pass rush has not been anywhere close to that good. And as for the offense, let's keep talking about the defense for a second. That was a bad offense. So we should expose them, but we did expose them. So it's sort of proof that this defense is legit. They just haven't been on. Let me restart. What does this mean for the team? As I was explaining before, this is a formula that you can win almost any game with, unless if you are extremely outmatched on a talent perspective or the other coach is just better at this same idea than you are, then you can win pretty much any game this way, because as I said, you can pick and choose when the game ends and when you score. That's a great way to just win a game you shouldn't, right? You just are the last guy with the ball, you score the last touchdown, and it's for the win. Great formula to win any football game. And I'm not saying the Browns are some amazing team. I said they were a competitive team, but the very bottom of that competitive tier. And now they drop down to that scrappy level, which the Giants have just ascended to. Spoiler alert. But this is a formula you can win games with. Now, that was a bad offense, but the defense looked spectacular. They really did. I mean, the pass rush, it was like every drop back that they were in gun, we were getting pressure with at least 2 guys, right? Flushing Watson outside, giving him nowhere to go, forcing him to throw away the ball. It was every play. So if the secondary is still young and developing, we can get away with it if this pass rush continues to play the way it does and Shane Bowen continues to be creative with his blitz calls. So if this isn't a fluke and the defense is just settling in, they will be above average, but they have the potential to be top 10 if they continue to improve, if Banks plays better. I forgot to mention Banks. He had a rough fourth quarter against Amari Cooper, but in the end of the day, he was there on that Cedric Tillman. It really was a drop, but it looked like it just barely skimmed his arm. So credit to him for not just getting cooked again and again and again, actually kind of dialing it back in and being there on the play where it matters. So the young secondary, with the help of this pass rush, could produce a top 10 defense. And when I say top 10, I really do mean like 10 or 9. If they were higher than that, I would be truly astonished. For the offense, if the offensive line can sustain this level of play and stay healthy, this is probably, if it's not Malik Nabers, the most important part of this entire team. I think we can survive if this defense doesn't play quite to this level. I think we can survive if Malik Nabers gets doubled. If the offensive line or Andrew Thomas is hurt, this is not going to look like this. This is why the Giants look different in this game. And I would say the Commanders game, the offense looked pretty good. It's been because of the offensive line. Now, that Vikings game was just Daniel Jones had a terrible game. I mean, the offensive line was playing all right, but it just wasn't enough. Brian Flores was too confusing. But as I stated earlier in the video, offensive line only allowed 2 sacks in this game and produced 112 rushing yards against this Browns defense. A top 5 defense, right? With the coaching and the roster combined. I mean, this team really shuts down some competitive playoff teams. So really encouraging to see the resilience of this coaching staff to not back down from that challenge. And the Giants heating up with Malik Nabers and Daniel Jones the way that they did this game and the week before is only going to draw more attention, right? And it's going to give more opportunities to the rest of the guys on offense, like Wandale, Singletary, the tight ends, and then Slayton and Hyatt. Just maybe they start commanding a target share, right? So this is very, very encouraging stuff from the offense. Daniel Jones looks comfortable and collected. He's doing everything he needs to do to produce wins. And his stats, I mean, currently on pace for like 240 yards a game. I'm not really looking at the Vikings game, just these past 2 games. 240 yards a game and 2 touchdowns. If this run game is playing the way it is, that's enough to win. That's enough to win some games. And we weren't even firing on all cylinders this game on both sides of the ball. There were still things we can do better, and you don't expect them to play perfect. Now, can we keep it up? Cowboys on a short week for Thursday Night Football. They just lost and are also 1-2 with their only win against the Cleveland Browns. They lost to New Orleans and Baltimore, 2 pretty good teams, so stay tuned for that video. But I will say if Andrew Thomas doesn't play, I'm not very confident in how this team's future is going to look. But with all that being said, thank you all for watching. I would like you to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe if you aren't already. Click that notification button so that you get notified when I release a new video, and share and comment with your friends if you think I'm an idiot for being excited about this win for the Giants. So thank you all again for watching, and stay tuned for that Cowboys video. Should be coming out Wednesday night.